Hello and welcome to Wineskins, a program featuring reflections on the lives of the saints and the sacred scriptures, along with a variety of topics and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm your host, Father Jim Korda. Our show is sponsored by the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. On our show today, I will interview Matt Abramowski about the Villa Maria Educational and Spirituality Center. We will also hear more about the life of St. Catherine of Siena and the readings for this fourth Sunday of Easter. That and more on Wineskins. To tell us more about vocations in the Diocese of Youngstown is Father Scott Kopp.
Normally when I introduce myself as Director of Vocations for the diocese, the first thing that comes into people's minds is, of course, that I'm looking for vocations to the priesthood, or that priesthood and religious life are the only vocations that there are. But really, my job is to help people discover and discern what their vocation is completely. The first vocation, of course, for all of us is the call to holiness. The goal for all of us, the calling for all of us in our way of life is to get to heaven and to lead a life of holiness in conformity with God, to lead to holiness. And there is joy in all of the vocations, but the joy comes for the individual when they are following the vocation to which they are called. So for all vocations, marriage, priesthood, religious life, or single life, we should all take the time at some point to study, to ask, to go more in depth. How often do we encourage others or even make available study and resources for what it takes for a good marriage, for what the opportunities are and how to live a life as a chaste single person? We should all read about the priesthood and religious life and see what aspects of it attract you, where you might be called, where you might be going. For God created you and gave you your gifts. And so whatever you are called to should kind of stir in your soul of what you are truly called to. Prayer is, of course, the most important. Praying specifically for what our path is, praying to be encouraged in the path to which we are already committed. Not always praying to hear an answer, but praying so that we can be attentive to all the many graced ways God speaks to us. For our young people, I always encourage them to the idea of more. God speaks to us, as we can see in the lives of the saints, in very frequent and typical ways. And these ways I always sum up as more. So hopefully at least everyone is going to Mass every Sunday and Holy Day of Obligation. As we try to figure out our calling and our path in life, maybe go more. Maybe go one more day a week. If you aren't going every Sunday, make that commitment to go every Sunday no matter what, not just when we feel like it. For whatever you're doing for your prayer life, if you haven't figured out your vocation, maybe pray more. Be honest about how much you are praying. If it's just before meals, that's a good place to start. But maybe when you first wake up in the morning and right before you go to bed, to add some type of quiet time, some type of standard set prayer. Whatever you're doing for volunteer work, that's wonderful. If it's once a year at the holidays, maybe find somewhere in the summer that you can go out and help other people. If it is a couple times a year, maybe go once a month. Increase your time of being service to others who need this help. But all of these aspects of more, we see in the lives of the saints that God speaks to people kind of during Mass, during prayer, during our reaching out and helping other people. And so simply by providing more time at these, we increase the likelihood that we'll be formed in conformity to God's will, and more likely to hear, to feel, to comprehend what He asks of us. We also talk about parishes creating an environment. So if in your parish you go and there is the poster of the seminarians, it's kind of this reminder that there are those that feel they have heard something from God, that they have done the more. And these are the ones that kind of have set aside this time to figure it out more deeply. So for the parish, have the poster, ask for a copy, pray for these young men, pray every day the vocation prayer card that encourages people in all states of life and all the different vocations, and encourage young people in their vocation. But who exactly do you encourage? Well, for vocations to the priesthood and religious life, when you see that one kid that is at Mass all the time, the one kid that seems to be paying attention at Mass, is involved in it either in serving or lecturing or extraordinary minister or singing. The one you see doing all the different extra service opportunities at the parish. They always seem to just be there and want that more. Mention it to them. Mention that you see something in them, that they feel an attraction to more service in the church. Point them out to your pastor or call me. Tell me, I think this guy has a vocation. I think he has a calling towards something more in the church. For myself, I found joy in my priesthood. My joy is because I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, what I'm called to be doing. I enjoyed my work beforehand. It was fulfilling, but not quite fulfilling enough. I wanted that more. And now today, praying with people, for me that more was the Mass. Listening and helping people, that more has become confession. Being with them in their times of trouble has become anointing of the sick. I find joy in what I do because this is what I am called to do. If it is marriage for you, if it is as parent, if it is as single, if it is in religious life, following the vows and obedience, take the risk. Take the attraction that this brings. Ask God if this is for you, and spend that time in more prayer, in more time and more service. And as it rings more and more true for your own life, may you find that more you're looking for when you find your true vocation. For Wineskins, I'm Father Scott Kopp.
The Feast of St. Catherine of Siena is celebrated on Thursday. To tell us more about this virgin and doctor of the Church is Martha Coulter. She is from St. Jude Church in Columbiana.
This popular saint was proclaimed co-patroness of Italy, together with St. Francis of Assisi in 1939, and she was named a doctor of the Church in 1970. She lived in the 14th century, the period of schism in the Church, and the residence of the Pope in Avignon, France. Born in Siena, the youngest of 25 children, she was drawn to a life of prayer from her earliest years. She had her first vision of Christ at the age of 6. As a teenager, she strongly resisted her mother's insistence that she prepare for marriage. Instead, at the age of 15, she joined the Dominicans and donned their habit, a white tunic and veil and a black mantle. As a lay Dominican, she continued to live at home and to perform various works of charity, but soon was drawn into political and religious activities. Her predominant concerns were the reform of the Church, including the clergy, and the return of the Pope from France to Rome. She soon attracted a following of both men and women and embarked upon an apostolate that necessitated much traveling to various parts of Italy. She was summoned to the general chapter of the Dominican order in 1374 to explain her apostolate and travels, and then the chapter assigned the Dominican Raymond of Capua as her spiritual director. In her last year, she lived in Rome with some of her followers near the Dominican church of Santa Maria sopra Minerva, where her body was placed under the main altar after her death in 1380. She was canonized in 1461. The opening prayer of the Mass touches on several characteristics of the spirituality of St. Catherine of Siena: her meditation on the sufferings of Christ, her ardent love, and her sacrifice to the Church. Her life was filled with extraordinary mystical phenomena, such as visions and revelations, infused knowledge, raptures, the mystical espousal and mystical marriage, and the stigmata, which appeared on her body only after her death. Her writings consisted of 382 letters, various prayers, and the dialogue of divine providence, which she dictated to secretaries, often in a state of ecstasy. The Office of Readings contains an extract from the dialogue addressed to the Trinity. "You are a mystery as deep as the sea," she says. The more I search, the more I find. And the more I find, the more I search for you. But I can never be satisfied. What I receive will ever leave me desiring more. When you fill my soul, I have an even greater hunger, and I grow more famished for your light. The intimacy of her union with God reached such a high point that at her mystical espousal, Christ exchanged hearts with her. But Catherine's spirituality is ultimately an apostolic one, as we read in the responsory of the Office of Readings. Go forth from the quiet of contemplation and courageously bear witness to my truth. Catherine of Siena is one of those saints who has a universal appeal, and both her spirituality and her mission in the Church are of perennial relevance. For Wineskins, I'm Martha Coulter.
With me is Matt Abramowski, who is a program director of the Villa Maria Educational and Spirituality Center in Villa Maria, Pennsylvania. Welcome to Wineskins.
Thank you, Father. Good to be with you again.
You know, Matt, we always enjoy when you're here because you inform us about the wonderful things that are going on at the center. Tell us a little history about the place, how it got started. What was the germination behind it all?
Sure. Villa Maria Education and Spirituality Center actually combined some different ministries on the campus. You had the Retreat Center, the Education Center, Farm-Based Environmental Education Program, and an eco-spirituality ministry called Evergreen. And back around 2005, all of those ministries were brought together under the umbrella of Villa Maria Education and Spirituality Center with the idea to offer programs and to welcome groups in line with that mission.
Let's talk about the charism of the Humility of Mary Sisters. We know that that really kind of drives everything that they do there. Tell us about the charism.
Sure. I always use the word hospitality as one of the anchors of their charism. Mother Madeleine, who founded the community in France, said the door to the sisters' home is always open to anybody who would like to come for the glory and honor of God. And so through our ministry, we essentially get to welcome people in support of that mission and that charism. But that sense of hospitality and welcome is something very near and dear to the sisters' heart from their founding, and it continues today in many ways, especially the way they open their home of Villa Maria to those who want to come for a time of retreat.
You know, it's interesting, whenever we hear about Humility of Mary Sisters, we automatically think of healthcare and the hospital system, which they were and have been a part of for a long time here in our diocese and around other places. But the education format really goes way back too. I remember my sister being part of the high school at the Villa. So that educational component was really part of the whole thing, but probably driving it all was this spirituality and this prayerfulness that I know many times you've talked about the sisters. Let's talk about that spiritual component and why that is so important for everything that they do.
Prayer is what anchors their life, guides everything they do. When we have retreatants, I tell them, you know, among everything about the campus, the most important thing is there's a sister, an actual sister at the Villa praying for you. So they have sisters assigned to pray for everything they do. And to me and to many, that's the most important work they do. When people come to the Villa, they talk about when they come onto the land that they feel something, a sense of healing, a sense of peace. And I tell them it's no accident. It's because of the deep faith and spirituality and prayer life of the sisters who have been there for over 150 years. It literally is something that you can feel when you come onto the Villa's property.
You know, for someone that's never been to the Villa in Pennsylvania, tell us what they can expect if they ever go there.
Sure. There's different parts of the campus. It's primarily the Mother House or the convent for the Humility of Mary Sisters, but even as part of that Mother House building, they started some 25 plus years ago apartments for senior living, for independent senior living, and they're actually in the process of exploring down the road possibly adding assisted living. There's a working farm at the Villa that's almost done becoming a certified organic farm. So that's part of the property. We're there, the retreat center. There's nature trails. There's an outdoor labyrinth. There's an art house. There's an indoor swimming pool. So many different amenities and features to the campus.
There's almost something for everybody.
Sure.
If you think about it. We know that in this day and age of the coronavirus, that many of the things that we have been doing have been different than what we've done in the past. And if you have people gathering, you have to be very concerned about the numbers and social distancing. What is is the Villa doing in order to provide those services, but yet keeping those guidelines in place?
One of the things we've been fortunate with is the campus itself is close to 750 acres with numerous buildings. So we do have some space to work with. So what we've been doing is we're in the state of Pennsylvania. So we've been following the state's guidelines, the CDC guidelines in terms of social distancing. It's meant limiting the size of gatherings. It's meant spreading people out more in a meeting space, making some adjustments in terms of how meals are served. But because of the space we have to work with, we've been able to make those adjustments. There are restrictions in some restricted areas given that the residential population at the Villa is in the vulnerable range. And so folks who are used to coming and kind of having unrestricted access to the campus will notice some differences there. But like many places, in a modified way, we've been able to welcome guests.
Let's talk about those guests. Those guests are not always of the Catholic faith. Let's talk about some of the people that come for the services.
And I'm glad you brought up that point, because we will get calls from people wondering, do you have to be Catholic to come there? And our mission statement says we welcome anybody who comes in line with our mission and our vision statement. And so we've welcomed many different Christian denominations. There's a group of Presbyterian pastors who consider us in Pennsylvania to be their home because they enjoy coming to the Villa. They enjoy having their retreat settings and using the amenities there. We've hosted healing retreats for some people who are really in vulnerable population who come from different or no faith traditions. So the Villa in the course of a year welcomes many different people from many different faith traditions and sometimes from no faith traditions. And then simply being there becomes a moment of grace and even an opportunity to share a little bit on the evangelization side.
Tell us how people can get in touch with the Villa for the services and programs.
Sure. We have a website, one of your best bets to go to. It's www.vmesc.org. That stands for Villa Maria Education Spirituality Center. Or they can call. We've got the 724 area code because we're in Pennsylvania, so it's 724-964-8886.
We want to talk about that word mission. Oftentimes when we think of mission, we think of sending someone overseas to spread the faith and to share the Catholic faith. But mission is really a larger concept of what we do and how we do it in the name of the Lord. What's the sole mission of the Humility of Mary Sisters?
The sisters, especially through us at the retreat center, we provide a space where people can come to be renewed and transformed so that they can be sent back to their families, back to their workplaces, back to maybe a challenging situation and see it a little bit differently, think a little bit differently, act a little bit differently. So we're in the mission of providing a space where people can come and through God's grace experience whatever they need to so that they can be sent back into their everyday lives a little bit different, transformed by that experience.
And give us the information again how they can get in touch with you.
Phone 724-964-8886 or our website www.vmesc.org.
Matt Abramowski, Program Director of the Villa Maria Educational and Spirituality Center. We appreciate your presence, and again, please give our blessings to the sisters and all of the folks at Villa Maria, Pennsylvania.
Certainly. Thank you for having me.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda. To receive more information and to listen to Wineskins, visit the website of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown at www.doi.org. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Hello, I'm Bishop Dave Bonner of the Diocese of Youngstown. At Easter, we recall the presence of the risen Lord among us. Over 2,000 years ago, he told his disciples, "Remember, I am with you always, even to the end of time." As we celebrate his resurrection, may his gifts of love and joy fill your hearts and homes this Easter season. May our thanks and celebration of his dying and rising give us abundant life now and always.
By the time we can walk, each of us yearns for the joy that comes from being able to do for ourselves. Church World Service believes that being self-reliant is a joy everyone should share. So around the block or around the world, share the joy. Church World Service.
Our song today is by the choir from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. It is from their CD entitled Triumph of the Cross, Music for Easter. Our scripture reflections for this fourth Sunday of Easter will be by Deacon Chad Johnson. He is to be ordained a priest this June.
In today's first reading from Acts, it's a continuation of events that we heard last Sunday. After curing a lame man, Peter and John are questioned by the temple authorities. When asked, "By what power or by what name have you done this?" Peter boldly responds that it was in the name of Jesus that the man was cured, and that it is in this name only that all people will be saved. The gospel for today is a portion of the longer and very familiar discourse on the Good Shepherd. Most people reading this passage have had no experience with tending sheep, but it is important to keep in mind that this discourse is about relationship. The Jewish community would have been familiar with the images of the shepherd and the hired hand. The hired hand to whom Jesus refers is an individual, or individuals, who had no relationship with the sheep he is paid to tend. The shepherd, on the other hand, is the one who knows and tends to the sheep with tender care. When Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd," he not only is identifying himself as the one with whom he and his sheep have a mutual relationship, but also saying that he and the Father have a mutual relationship. While using the familiar shepherd imagery of the Old Testament, Jesus expands the image of shepherd to include other sheep that do not belong to this fold. Jesus will lay down his life for many, and not just for an elite few. Yes, Jesus is the Good Shepherd, and not only because he offered himself for his sheep, but because he knows his sheep intimately, having lived with them from birth to death. In an address to priests, Pope Francis has said, "This is what I am asking you. Be shepherds with the smell of sheep." That is, he asks them to go out and take part in the lives of those they lead. This is the task of all the baptized. Like the priest who seldom goes out of himself, the Christian who fails to minister in some way to the rest of the flock fails in charity. A person who takes an overly academic approach to faith misses the heart of the gospel message. What might Jesus mean when he states that he must also lead sheep who are not of this fold, but that they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock, one shepherd? I invite you to reach out to someone outside your own flock, for yours might be the voice they need to hear. For Wineskins, I'm Deacon Chad Johnson.
Jesus is that shepherd in the gospel who voluntarily lays down his life for his sheep. Why? Because he knows us and he loves us. He cares for our welfare. Like the Good Shepherd, he is willing to die for us. If that is the case, then how much are we worth? Wineskins is made possible by the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. The program is produced by CTNY, the Catholic Telecommunications Network of Youngstown. I'm your host, Father Jim Korda, wishing you a blessed Sunday and a safe week. And we of CTNY would like to encourage you to pray this day for vocations to the priesthood and religious life.
What have you done for your marriage today?
I gave my wife a hug this morning. I told her I love her.
I did her hair this morning. I think it looks pretty good.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I bought her an orchid.
What have I done for my marriage today? I sent my husband a love email.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up. But she's still laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Make a change for the better. Need help? Go to foryourmarriage.org, a message from the Catholic Church.
They say America is the land of opportunity, but for some, life isn't so easy. Right now in America, 1 in 6 children lives below the poverty line. That's nearly 13 million children of all races, all across our country. Where do you draw the line and get involved? You can make a difference in more ways than you think. Go to povertyusa.org today, because 1 in 6 children in poverty is one too many. A message from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development.